Looking towards the future, I suppose you must be starting to hypothesize what's going to happen 5, 10, 15 years, how your virtual museum is going to grow. I saw in the Museum's Journal, actually, you took out an advert, I think it was in the last issue, where you basically made the case for digital loans. And so that's something that's a kind of, it's not something that I think about when loaning artworks from museum to museum, and maybe you could talk about that as an emerging area.
Well, the Museums Association are great for campaigns. I mean, they're a wonderful institution, and they've always got a different campaign every month or every 2 months. And the current campaign is about the environment, and the museum sector is about even the Arts Council now. If you're wanting to have a grant, you've got to have a statement of intent and to be able to demonstrate your environmental credentials. Well, we are a small institution. We think big, yes, and we punch above our weight, but we are physically a small institution. So we understand the realities of running a small institution. And making a physical exhibition, transferring a physical exhibition. So first of all, you've got to take the works out of store. You've then got to wrap them. You've then got to transport them. They've then got to be delivered. They've then got to be unwrapped. They've then got installers to fit them. They've then got security. You've then got the costs of insurance, transport, etc., etc., etc. So you have a very high carbon footprint and you have a very high cost, which is why probably only 20 museums in this country, including Ben Uri, we have a vibrant loan program, actually are in the loans business. Really just the majors. Well, if we think about it, why should small museums in rural communities not enjoy works from the Royal Academy, if I can throw it over to the Royal Academy? Why should the Royal Academy not be able to share their works? Maybe because the security environment of that small institution can't cope with Caravaggio, and I understand that. But surely if it has a very high quality reproduction, that in itself could A, inspire people, and B, think, I must go to London. I must see the real thing. So what we've developed is a museum loan and exhibition policy where actually other institutions, of course not the nationals, not the majors, but the small institutions can say, we can put on a Ben Uri exhibition, any one of our 50 exhibitions that different exhibitions online, we can put that on, or you can curate from our collection, and we will give you high-resolution JPEGs or TIFFs. We send it down digitally, you get it reproduced locally, and you hang it, and then you can either rotate them or whatever it is, but your audience, your local community will have something new, which always attracts visitors, something high quality, and is it the real thing? No, it's not. Is it as good, near enough as the real thing? Yes, it is. And I tell you why this came about, because I happened to be in the Met for a great Cézanne exhibition some years ago, and the Card Players, which is Cézanne's greatest artwork, and I'm looking at it, and then I'm looking at the label, it's a reproduction. The Met, Cézanne's Card Players, it's a reproduction. Well, if it's good enough for the Met, it's good enough for Ben Uri, and it's good enough for many of the 3,200 museums in the UK. But it's a mindset. They have to actually think, you know what? It'd be great. It will cost us £500 and we can have a complete art exhibition that we would never have been able to have before. No carbon footprint, 500 quid. Their cost, not ours.
Thank you, David. I'm aware that we've covered a very wide amount of territory, which raises lots of questions for me, and I have many more questions, but I wanted to open it up to the floor at this point.
What seems to me important is the context, commentary, interpretation, history of the artist. All of these things is what I think would bring people to a digital museum, and that's, I know,
that's our thought process. Yeah, absolutely. And it's that linkage of different aspects that we can actually provide the viewer on a screen that we can't provide, yes, actually on a personal basis, one-to-one for our less than 15 visitors a day. But can I just go back to one thing, if I may, Sam? Yes. You're talking about the future. So I'm a Luddite. I mean, I'm of an age where I'm finding great difficulty in actually getting my email sorted out. So, but thankfully nobody else is. So, but we've set up a committee on the board, yes, which is actually called Digital Futures. It's called New Horizons. And their job is to design and to think through the digital museum of the 2030s and 40s. And when somebody challenged me on this, when we launched this 2 years ago, or started launching in terms of recruiting for this 18 months ago, and they said, you can't tell what's going to happen in the digital world in 2 years' time, never mind 10 or 20 years' time. I said, you're absolutely right. I've got no idea where it's going. What I do know is where it's not going. And it's not going back. The digital world will expand, it will be faster, it will be more incredible with the metaverse, whatever the metaverse is, however that evolves. And we've got a very senior executive from Microsoft, yes, who's come back from Seattle, heading up this committee, full of very competent people, a team of 4. And they are planning, and they're going to talk, actually, they're going to be on the platform tomorrow, I think it is, talking about how we use art differently. So we're planning ahead for the next 10 years. Will we get it right? Of course we won't get it right. But if we get the direction, I used to work for Marks and Spencer's, and Marcus Seif once told me when I told him how smart I was that I did something, whatever it was, and he said to me, he says, never mind being smart, he says, the smart people are the people who get the direction right. The people who pinpoint it are lucky. So we'll get the direction right. That's the most important thing. Because where are we going to be in 10 years' time? Think where we were 10 years ago digitally. How many of us had smartphones 10 years ago? How many people actually sat on a train, a public transport, doing nothing else but digital on our phones, sitting on our screens? Where would we be without our laptops? That was only 10 years ago. The speed of change is lightning. So where will we be in 10 years' time? I can't be specific, but I can tell you it will be greater, more highly developed digital engagements. And that's what we're planning for.
Thank you. Would anybody like to ask a question?
And I found it fascinating, your idea about digital loans. I think it's a wonderful idea, but at the same time I would like to be critical because we still enjoy seeing artworks in the flesh.
Okay. So if well, first of all, I thank you for the idea. We have loans, we physically loan out over 100 works a year, yes? In our magazine, which we produce for the London Art Fair, you'll see that this year Ben-Uri is represented in museum exhibitions with our works in France in 2 different locations, Germany, I think in 2 different locations, Oslo, Madrid. We're international, we lend over 100 works a year. But the small institution, the local, rural, country, town institution. So for example, I used to know Tame very well. Lovely little Thames, little town in Oxfordshire. Lovely little local museum, run by wonderful people. There's no money there to be able to ship Ben-Uri or to insure Ben-Uri Bomberg. It's just not there. They are back at £2 million. It's not possible, and probably don't have the environmental conditions either, to do it. But digitally they could. Yeah. What about a Caravaggio in Nuneaton?
Yeah.
Wow. Why does everything have to be so elitist? Why can everybody in our country not enjoy, yes, if not the physical, the top quality reproduction works and all the information that goes with it? Why not?
Yeah, I think we should include that in the museums conference as a topic.
I'm at your disposal, madame.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? At the back row there, thank you.
The board structure, the people who design the website, keep it working, like that sort of thing. I think it's really interesting.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a secret, okay? But it is a secret, so you mustn't tell anybody, okay? Promise me? Yes? Okay. Right. So when we decided to go digital, we had one problem, okay? More than anything else. And that was that we sort of didn't have the money to actually go and build the website that we wanted to build. I mean, not a big problem. I mean, we could rob a bank, defraud, an investment house, but we weren't very good at that either, so we didn't have the money. So what we did was we rented, we still do, a standard gallery template. And it costs us around, I think it's about £100 a month or something, okay? And we bend it, push it, stretch it, nudge it. Sometimes we give it a little kick somewhere, and we linked our 2 existing websites, one of which we're actually transforming and we're relaunching next month, yes, into it, so that what would have cost us £100,000 plus, yes, is actually costing us around £1,500 a year, okay? Because small institutions have to think smart as well as work hard. So that's secret number 1, but don't you dare tell anybody, okay? And then we did something else different. Every institution, if you're the major institutions with a big cash flow, a big income stream, you can afford to buy the best people. Yeah. When you're getting average of 10 visitors a day, believe me, you can't afford to buy the best people, okay? You need to have voluntary support, okay? So we have one of the best curators as our director in town, okay? She's fantastic. And we have a wonderful academic team, okay? Full of PhDs and who love what they do and love why we're doing it. But we don't have the money, yes? We don't have an income stream that allows us to spend £500,000 a year in salaries. It doesn't exist. So we created something different. We created the executive trustee, the portfolio holding trustee, okay? And we advertise on that basis. I have 2 sitting in the audience, both of whom will probably give me hell afterwards, but they are responsible for different areas. So they are our chief executives of whether it's finance or operations and HR and everything else. And our team, yes, are supported by them on a voluntary basis. But they will report around the board table, yes, on their portfolios. So we have a digital portfolio holder, and that's how we've actually bridged the gap between employing senior executives at $100,000 a year plus, yes, which we simply can't afford. And we the 2 other mantras that we have, okay, so and it's interesting. One is that it's good enough. I'm looking at one of my colleagues who I always talked about perfection being the enemy of the good, and she said, never mind all that rubbish. It's good enough, and she's right. It's good enough. That's a good enough definition of it. Because at the end of the day, it's better to get 75% of perfection, yes, out there, than to try and not do that, try and go for 100%. And the second is that you have to be very patient. Small institutions, small business have to be patient. And there is always a mantra that I always remember. How do you eat a whale? You eat it in small pieces and slowly. And that's another one of the frustrations. And I come from the big business environment, so I'm not very good at being patient. But actually, it's absolutely spot on. If you want to achieve big, you have to do it slowly, you have to be patient, you have to accept when you hit the wall, or what you actually believe is absolutely rock solid that it would work, and then it doesn't. You have to cut it up to the little pieces, and you have to eat it slowly. And that's how we do it.
I basically had one question because we are museum professionals, and maybe we can finish on this. If this digital engagement, this digital future that you're opening up, that we're talking about here, I mean, what does it mean for recruitment in this world? There may be curators here, museum professionals. When museums are in the metaverse, which they will be, will that require, a curator to have really web analysis, web design skills? Are we going to be seeing fundamental changes in our jobs?
I don't think we're going to see fundamental changes, but I think we're going to undoubtedly see a reshaping. I mean, the fundamental aspect of a curator or the museum sector is scholarship. I mean, unless it's based on scholarship, I mean, frankly, we shouldn't be there. But how you interpret that scholarship and how you interpret it in a way that you can then communicate it digitally, that requires a change of mindset and also retraining in many ways. But the mindset comes first. Unless you've got the mindset that actually says that, yes, I'm going to engage 10 people a day physically, but I'm going to engage 1,000 people a day digitally. Therefore, just on sheer numerical hierarchy, I've got to make sure that the digital side is absolutely spot on. That could require retraining, but it's a mindset. It really is. It's all down to mindset. Because if we want to do something, we'll do it. I mean, if we don't want to do something, we won't do it. I mean, you can take a horse to the well. I don't think it's going to change the fundamental, because the scholarship has to be at the base of it, but it's certainly going to change the approach. So it's no longer worrying about, frankly, whether the label is a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, or anything else, because that's only affecting a very small amount of people. It's how it's communicated digitally, how easy it is, how you link it through, what you want to tell them. And that requires a digital frame of mind.
Thank you, David. It's been very enlightening, and thank you all very much for coming.